we're going to want to talk a little bit more about the news that Rand Paul is dropping out. We're joined now in Washington
by senior political editor Steve Chaggaris. Steve, what do you make of this? Everyone thought that might happen yesterday.
Yeah, it's not really surprising. He came in a distant fifth in Iowa. He really is sort of, his campaign has been flagging for months. And it's interesting because this is a guy who, when he announced, everybody thought he was going to be really in the top tier of these candidates. His dad, Ron Paul, ran a couple of times, raised a lot of money, really sort of held that libertarian flag within the Republican Party, and they thought that Rand Paul was going to be the guy that was going to carry that. And then over the course of the year, I think he got drowned out by the other candidates, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, even Jeb Bush, and the people who aren't polling as well. It seemed the crowd was a little too big, and then his message, I think, really doesn't fit with what Republicans are looking for this year. He's that libertarian message of less government and surveillance. We're now at a time when the terrorism fears are higher than they were before Paris and San Bernardino, and so I think it was sort of the wrong time for him. And then the other part of this is that he has he's running for re-election to the Senate simultaneously, and so there are questions about whether he was not focused enough on that, and so this will now allow him to focus on running for re-election.
Do you think that this will maybe have an impact on the conversation at all during the election? I mean, he was one of the few candidates that were willing to be very critical of Donald Trump early on when no one wanted to criticize him. Also pretty critical of Ted Cruz as well, pretty plain spoken in his criticism. Do you think that conversation will change with him out?
Not really. I mean, I just don't think that, if you remember, not the last debate, but the prior debate, he didn't even make the main stage and didn't take part and did his own sort of narrative on Twitter during the debate. He was back on the main stage at the last debate, but that was lower rated. Donald Trump wasn't on stage. And there are others, I think, that can fill that void. They're all going after each other now. In fact, now that Marco Rubio has come in a strong third in Iowa, it seems that the firing line, the circular firing line, is focused on him a lot. But there's still plenty of people out there to criticize Trump and Cruz. The field is still very large, even though we've lost Huckabee and now Paul.
Steve, I'm curious, are people, which candidates do you think are going to be courting Rand Paul for his endorsement and for his father's endorsement?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure there's a natural fit there. Rand Paul was sort of the lone libertarian voice in this race. And it just seems, based on his polling throughout the campaign and what happened in Iowa, that there just isn't much desire to have, to really sort of tout that wing of the party right now. People really, Republicans are really looking at the sort of angry voter, the voter that just wants to get Republicans elected, outsider-type Republicans, anti-establishment Republicans, and Rand Paul, even though he did sell himself as an anti-establishment type, he's of that sort of libertarian strain. So it'll be interesting to see if anybody goes after his support. But again, there wasn't much there. A distant fifth in Iowa, there's just not a lot there, and I'm sure he'll endorse somebody at some point down the line. But I don't think you're going to see a huge line of candidates waiting for that endorsement immediately.
All right, Steve Chaggaris, thank you very much.
Thanks.